everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of Midnight Files. It's Tuesday, March 20th, 2018. I'm Kat.
I'm Alex.
Here we go. Hello, Alex.
What's up, Kat?
Hey, not much. Excited for episode 2.
Same. Before we get all the way into it, though, a few housekeeping notes. One is that our first episode across all platforms hit almost 1,100. I think is where we're at right now.
So far.
So far, which is 4 days ago. In listens and downloads across YouTube and SoundCloud and Stitcher and all that stuff. So just a huge thank you to everybody who listened and left kind messages and encouraging messages. The few people who were like, hey, the audio is a little weird. We're going to try and fix that in this episode where it was split between the two channels. Hopefully, as you're listening to this right now, that problem is solved and that everybody's voice is equal and in volume.
All the feedback was great. Please do continue to do that and make sure that you're signed up to get notified when it goes up everywhere, not just on YouTube, because it does go up a little early other places if you are listening on YouTube to this.
Yeah, and you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. We always post right before or right when the show will go live, so you can do that as well. One more time, thank you for everybody who listened and left really encouraging, kind words. It was awesome to see and
Heck
hear.
Yeah.
So how you doing this week, Kat?
I am great. Like I said, I'm very excited for this week's episode.
Same.
It's a subject I know we've wanted to dive into for a very long time.
For sure.
And we weren't really sure how to go about doing it.
And I just realized that I said for sure, which when I edited last week's episode, I realized I said for sure about 1 million times. So I'm going to try and keep that to a minimum this time if I can. But I think you had mentioned we can maybe turn it into a drinking game for our 21 plus crowd. Every time we say for sure, just do a shot or just have some chocolate milk because you're a nice wholesome boy or girl.
For sure.
For sure. There you go. Last week's it was all about mysterious cases in aviation. This week we are digging into mysterious missing persons cases that have kind of a supernatural or creepy or unexplainable element to them.
And there are some really weird things involved in these ones.
And there's a couple that you don't even know about.
I know.
I've kind of held these ones back because I wanted to get your raw reaction from them. The main body of the first few that we're going to talk about come from and you probably have heard of this, and there's now a documentary about it out. It's called Missing 411.
And I'm familiar to an extent, but there's definitely quite a few stories that I really don't know, or at least don't know well. And then we also have, same as last week, a little extra couple segments, one of which talking about creepy things kids say again. And then we have the /X-Files brought to you by you.
I really like this one. You'll have to wait till the end to get to that. If you're ready to go, I'm ready to go.
Let's do it.
Before we jump into the entirety of the body of stories from the Missing 411 stuff, let's get a little background on the guy who is doing all this work.
Sure.
His name is David Paulides. I'm on his wiki page right now, and it says that he obtained undergraduate and graduate degrees from the University of San Francisco. In 1977, he began working for the Fremont Police Department. In October of 1980, he transferred to the nearby San Jose Police Department, worked the patrol division on the SWAT team Patrol Street Crimes Unit. During his time as a detective, Paulides worked in the Vice Intelligence Unit and performed a variety of assignments. In 2011, Paulides received approval for a deferred vesting status, totaling 16 and a half years of service for his time with the San Jose Police Department. So,
Dang.
yeah, the guy was in law enforcement for, pushing 20 years, seemingly a credible source. But then we get into this next part of it, which I feel like we have to put on Front Street before you talk about it, is he spent a good part of his post-police life being real into Bigfoot.
And, there are some people who have credible backgrounds who are into Bigfoot.
Hey, man, I like cryptids as much as the next guy. The Squatch, that one's a little out there for me. Nothing has made me go, holy shit, it's real.
That's not a make or break for me.
Well, he's got 2 self-published Bigfoot-related books, and he created the research group called North American Bigfoot Search, for which he served as director. He was doing that. He was going to conferences. He jumped on, AM Coast to Coast. The long and the short of it being that this guy seems seemingly incredible to me up until the Bigfoot stuff. But hey, everybody needs a hobby in retirement.
Right.
Some people build model planes, some people build model ships. Apparently that's the only two things that I know of as hobbies.
Courtesy of like my dad now that he's retired.
Yeah, pretty much. Some people, whatever, collect things, they refurbish things. This guy is just like, I'm gonna find me a Squatch.
Hey, that sounds like a great way to spend your retirement.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds better than a lot of people. But here we go. This information comes from a website called theepochtimes.com. I've got an article here by Tara McIsaac. We've got David Paulides, who had more than 20 years experience in law enforcement, has analyzed missing persons cases across North America and has found some startling similarities. Local authorities usually view those cases from a local perspective, but Paulides has stepped back to see how all the pieces fit together into a bigger puzzle. It's like something out of the X-Files, Paulides said during a talk at the University of Toronto on May 21st. He has collected some 2,000 cases that have similar, mysterious characteristics. They're clustered in certain areas, particularly around bodies of water in national parks. If the people are found alive, they often have... Okay, so we're actually... Hang on one second. Let's pump the brakes.
Oh, they're getting into the good part.
Yeah, they're getting into the actual specifics of the stories here. I was trying to find a little bit more on Paulides because the information of how he came to start looking into this after being into Bigfoot was actually kind of interesting to me. We're on the wiki again here. According to Paulides, his work on the subject of missing persons began when he was doing research in a national park and an off-duty park ranger found him and expressed concern about the questionable nature of some of the missing persons cases which occurred in the parks. The ranger knew Paulides' background and requested that he research the issue.
That's weird. I mean, just thinking of it as a person, somebody comes up to you and they're like, you need to look into this.
Well, I guess they knew, like, hey, he was a cop for like 20 years. He's also really into like the Bigfoot thing, and that ties into the missing people. Now, this is something I want to put up on Front Street. Okay, we're going to talk about all these cases from him. We've got like 2 or 3 that we'll go through before we move on to a totally different missing persons case. It's unrelated, seemingly unrelated. He's never come out with an absolute as to what is causing these disappearances.
Right, because pretty much all he's done is just collect the stories and find the similar ones that have the weirdness, right?
Right. I thought it was interesting the way he was introduced to this subject matter. So let's finish this out. Paulides obliged and asserts that he uncovered multiple lines of evidence suggesting negligence on the part of the Park Service in failing to locate missing people. He broadened his investigation to include missing people from across the world, and this led to his belief that he has uncovered a mysterious series of worldwide disappearances defying logical and conventional explanation. Here we go. As of 2017, Paulides has written 6 books on this topic. According to A Sobering Coincidence, he does not yet have a theory on what...
Which is the book title, right?
That is the... Yeah, I don't know if that's the... yeah, according to A Sobering Coincidence, yeah. No, I don't know if that's his first book or his most recent book or just one of his books. According to A Sobering Coincidence, he does not yet have a theory on what is causing the disappearances. I think that he does. If anything, he's thinking it's Bigfoot.
I mean, it would make sense since he also has a passion for that.
But I think he's also being like, okay, but I can't come out and say that because I'll eliminate half my audience.
I think he probably already knows that since that's part of his background, he knows that he's got a limited scope of people who are going to take him seriously anyway.
I think he's playing way more up the side of like, I was a cop. These are all weird missing persons cases. I'm looking at this from a cop's point of view, omitting the fact that, hey, for a few years in the middle there, I wrote 2 books on Bigfoot. I also think when you're looking at these missing persons cases and you say, well, I'm going to take a map and I'm going to say, well, how many people are missing in this one park? And then kind of zoom out a little bit and be like, well, how about the surrounding area? Then you kind of ignore everything in between and just go to another another national park and do another, battery of searches. You're going to get that poster board map that has that, like, these huge clusters of missing persons cases, but you're cherry picking, a little bit.
I don't know if it's so much cherry picking as it is just really finding the ones that have odd specifics.
I guess what I'm saying is if the board was like filled in completely with every missing persons case, would these clusters be there?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that there are people who've gone missing in national parks that have just gone missing.
Okay, and this is another part, is all of the cases in the book are barring any natural circumstances like an animal, like a mountain lion or a bear. He's omitting anything where somebody could have tripped and fallen and hurt themselves or knocked themselves unconscious and then died due to exposure.
So that's kind of what I was thinking of too, is, I mean, there's unfortunately natural ways that you could go about getting hurt or lost in giant parks.
And they are huge too, but that's what I'm saying is he is omitting those cases. And these are the ones that have filled apparently 6 fucking books are the ones that are left. If it's real, like, it's terrifying because that means he's omitted like any kind of natural causes, any kind of like animal involvement, any kind of seizures or something where somebody just went out and got lost. He's saying these are cases that are completely
flagged as completely weird.
Yeah, unexplainable, something sketchy about them, and there are 6 books worth of them. I
need to be reading these books.
I'm really not trying to take the immediate skeptic's point of view here and be like, well, this guy's full of shit.
No, because I mean, they are actual, factual missing people.
Right.
So yeah, what's interesting to me is the fact that these are actually missing people.
Right. So, and same with me is that these are actual missing persons cases. This is like the asterisks here, as all of that last section was like, I feel the need as a skeptical person to put that shit out before, you know, we lure you in and say, hey, look at these creepy stories that are this. But here is all this. This guy was also into Bigfoot, and he's sold 6 different books about this shit. I just feel like I wanted to get it out there.
Sure, yeah.
out front.
Totally understandable. But
now that you know that, going in with an open mind, let's dig into some of these stories.
Yes, please.
So I'm pulling this first grouping of stories from Thought Catalog. It's a website, and this is a story written by Emily Madriga on September 19th, 2017. So she's just compiled a list of some of the most interesting ones, and it was easier to pull them from there as opposed to trying to pull them from all over the internet.
Sure.
But you can definitely independently research all of these things and find them for yourself and kind of fact check along with us.
Let's do it.
So, another thing they point out in this article that's kind of interesting is that the National Park Service has no database where missing people are tracked across the system. Because of this, no one even knows how many people are currently missing in national parks. There's also the sheer volume of missing persons cases that would qualify as especially strange.
That just seems kind of negligent on the part of the National Park Service.
Well, I guarantee you there's a missing persons program for each state and the country.
Right.
I think that what they're saying is and these are huge, huge, huge parks. I mean, these are, I don't have a number in front of me, but they're massive. And so, yeah, they should have their own internal system of people being reported missing.
Well, I'm sure that there's an overall National Parks Service that should at least be keeping track of all of the national parks, you know, happenings, employees, and things. I don't know why missing people wouldn't be part of that catalog.
Exactly, and that kind of leads you to the whole conspiracy angle. That seems like the angle the subject's being broached by Paulides is that, you know, something's happening in our national parks that is outside of the realm of normal. The National Park Service denies it and has no like way of cataloging it. But let's get into the stories. So our first one is Lillian Carney. Lillian was from Masardis, Maine, which is 15 miles west of the Canadian border and surrounded by lakes, rivers, and ponds. She was 6 years old. She went missing August 8th, 1897 at noon.
My gosh, that has been happening a long time.
Right? Lillian and her parents went blueberry picking. People going missing while picking berries is a theme in these cases. That's a parenthetical.
You know, you and I picked blackberries on a walk through a park in Michigan once.
We did. We're lucky to be alive. We're fucking lucky to be alive. Okay, so they were there for a short amount of time, and the parents say she just vanished. They searched for an hour, and they got some people in the area to help. By the following morning, there were 200 searchers there calling for Lillian. Paulides said when searchers are looking for someone, they call the person's name, say that they are their friend, and that they're there to help. Paulides said in the missing 411 cases, the searchers never get a response, which is strange if people are lost, cold, or hungry.
Well, yeah, especially if you're 6 years old and someone's like, hey,
I'm
you
your
want
friend,
some food?
I'm here to help, yeah.
Yeah.
On Tuesday, around 300 residents arrived to search at 10 a.m. A guy named Bert Poland, I do not know if that is spelled right. I'm going to stop reading this lady's parentheticals here. But at 10 a.m., a man named Bert Poland found her somewhere between 2 and 3 miles from where her parents last saw her. There wasn't much detail in the article about where they found her. While Lillian didn't say a lot, she made an interesting statement. The sun shined all the time while I was in the woods. Paulides said it was a weird thing for a 6-year-old to say. The weather was stated in the news. The weather, as stated in the news article, as being partly cloudy, and she had spent 2 nights outside and was missing for 46 hours.
And you're gonna already think I'm a nutcase, but that sounds a lot like people who report that they have encountered fairy realms. I know it sounds weird.
What?
Yeah. If you look into, usually it's not in the U.S., but people who say that they've been lured away go to like a whole other place that looks and seems totally different.
Okay, so like in D&D terms, you're talking about like some Fae step shit. Like, I mean, like where you're heading into the Fae realm and you get
they do tend to like kids.
Okay. All right, we're keeping an open mind here. The interviewer commented that she must have been referencing something to say something like that, and said that she would have described it as sunlight. It might not have been. He also said that for a time period, you're not going to find an area like that with very bright artificial lights. So like in the time period, 1800s, yeah. Okay, so that's it for Lillian's case. Thoughts?
I'm glad she was found alive.
A very rare part of this of these cases.
I think most of them they are not. The year alone is kind of surprising. I really thought this was kind of like a mid 1900s to now thing. I didn't realize it'd been over 100 years that they've been cataloging these.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he had a number in his first book that was something to the effect of like 1,500 people since the records have been being kept. And that's omitting the cases, like I said, that were obvious, like animal death, animal-related death.
Seemingly natural.
Seemingly natural causes, yeah. These are just people who went straight up missing with... now, see, okay, with Lillian's case, right? That's the one we just talked about.
Right.
I could see a little girl wandering off. It's really... Okay, in the woods, it's really easy to get lost. Especially if you're a kid, you don't have any orientation. The only part of the story that strikes me as any bit weird is her being like, it was daylight all the time.
Yeah.
Everything else just feels like a normal missing persons case to me.
The other thing that kind of makes me think of would be alien abduction.
Yeah, I mean, we can go there. And it's not outside the realm of possibilities when we're talking about possibly like throwing Bigfoot in the mix. But, you know, also hell of a jump.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like a very bright light source and not remembering that it's been 2 whole days.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we could get into the alien abduction side of it with
probably with a few of these. I'm excited to find out details about more of them.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next one then. We'll leave that one on the I don't believe that it's that crazy. We still don't have a fucking rating system yet. We're working on it.
Sure.
The only one we have is I want to believe. The rest of it, the barometer of true to absolute false, we still don't have it. So maybe you guys could help us come up with that.
Too. Yeah.
Well, maybe like we could have submissions and like anybody who's interested, like try and give us a rating system of a story, like 0 being like absolute bullshit, and then the being 100% true, you know, all ends of the spectrum and different ratings in between. If that's something you'd like to do, tweet at us or, you know, find us on Instagram or
message
comment.
Me anywhere. Yeah.
Message, yeah. She's Paranormal Kativity. I'm the Geeksmith. Find us and submit that stuff because that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one. John Doe.
Uh-oh. That one didn't make it, did he?
I don't know. Let's find out. John Doe is a 3-year-old boy who went missing near Mount Shasta at 6:30 p.m. and was found later at 1:30 p.m. or 11:30 p.m. I'm sorry. This is how he recounted his missing time. He tells a story that he was taken into a cave.
Wait. John Doe was alive?
Mm-hmm.
I thought there's an actual person named John Doe?
Wait, hold tight.
Didn't they always say John Doe is like a missing dead person?
John Doe is like somebody who like a body they find with no identification.
Yeah. This is an actual straight up person named John Doe.
Or either that or there was no name associated with this case because it was it has to be withheld. No, you thought you found like the John Doe Prime.
John Doe.
John Doe Prime?
Yeah.
We found him, boys.
My bad.
He went missing in Mount Shasta. Okay, so John Doe Prime is a 3-year-old boy who is missing near Mount Shasta. Okay. We have to put on our serious faces here, Kat.
He's a transformer. I'm sorry.
Well, maybe he is. We don't know until we crack the egg here. So let's...
A 3-year-old transformer. Let's do this.
This is how he recounted his missing time. Okay, that's where we left off. He tells a story that he tells the story that he is taken into a cave that he thinks is underground. He says he knows it is dark outside, but when in the cave, I could see the entrance and it's light outside. So he knows it's dark outside. He was
taken to the cave?
That's what he says. He tells this is written really poorly. He tells a story that he is taken into a cave that he thinks is underground. He says he knows it is dark outside, but when in the cave... See, this is some bullshit. Thought catalog. Come on, man. When in the cave, I could see the entrance and it's light outside. So when he was taken into the cave, he said he knew it was dark outside, but he could still see the entrance to the cave and it was light outside.
Okay.
He said he was with a woman, there you go, who looked like his grandmother, and he thought it was his grandmother.
Ugh.
In the cave, he saw other things that looked like people, but they are robots that aren't moving.
Ugh.
What in the fuck? After a while, he figures out that the woman isn't his grandmother, even though she is nice and polite with him. He concludes she's a robot. He said there was some unusual light coming from her head.
What?
She started to get pushy, took out some sticky paper and put it on the ground and asked him to defecate on it. He said he didn't have to go and she got mad. She put stick them on the ground instead to poop on it,
Poop
Kathy.
on this Post-it.
Take shit on this Post-it. Yeah. This has creeped me out, actually. He said he didn't have to go, and she got mad. He said he saw small guns and things around the perimeter of the cave, and they had dust on them. And that is the end of that story.
What the F? Are you kidding me?
No. I mean, they might be bullshitting you. I'm not. This one is... I've never felt so split because I want to believe. There's one of our ratings. But I don't want to believe. I don't want to believe there's creepy
elements to it.
Creepy robot doppelganger grandma saying to poop on the floor to a 3-year-old
sample child.
Yeah, no thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Ooh, that one gives me the heebies.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that story. Okay, so he was taken into a cave by a woman who looked like his grandmother. Turns out she's a robot.
It doesn't seem like time would have been missing, because if it was between, like... Oh, well, no.
He says this is how he recounted his missing time. Now, I don't think he was missing time. This is the time he spent while missing.
And if he was missing between 6:30 and 11:30 p.m., unless it was, like, really bright out for the evening, it shouldn't have been that much of a difference of light from the end of the cave.
I don't know. Sounds to me like he was taken aboard a spaceship.
That's kind of what it sounds like. Yeah, if there's, like, a halo around the grandma and she's...
And there's other robots there. It's like, well, a child could easily misconstrue like people trying to pretend to be a person as the only thing they'd ever seen do that, which is like an automaton or a robot.
Yeah.
Okay, but see, this is where we gotta stick to the case facts here. We're going into wild speculation territory here.
Okay.
What could have actually happened here?
I
mean, just crazy people.
I mean, I guess that.
Let's say one thing right off the bat. The kid is 3. Have you ever talked to a 3-year-old? They're full of shit.
Well, apparently not too much because he couldn't poop on command.
Okay, but you know what I mean.
But no, I do understand what you're saying. But kids have an interesting imagination level, and depending on that kid and their character, we don't know them, so we also
don't have a time frame on this story. Like, there's no year for this story, so for all we know, like, this kid could have been watching some Buck Rogers or some shit like that back in the day, and he goes missing, and so he gets taken by like woods people, and then he creates some fantasy story for himself to self-soothe or something.
I feel like a little kid would have said, like, there was a scary person someone I didn't know. If he recognized this person and they seemed polite to him, I think it's something a little deeper than that. What it is, I still don't know.
I have no idea. All right, let's do one or two more of the missing 411 cases. Okay. Okay. And then we'll kind of digest the whole thing. Okay, so the next one we have is Stephen Kubacki. Hell of a name. The case of Stephen Kubacki, who went missing for 15 months, then woke up in a field wearing different clothing.
Dude was missing for over a year?
Over a year, and he woke up. Okay, this is interesting. In February of 1978, Stephen, a student at the time learning German, went missing in the Michigan area. Oh, come on, that's close, man. In the Michigan area in USA, an area known as the Great Lakes Triangle. Ooh,
yep.
Are we talking about the Devil's Triangle?
Oh yeah,
because
sounds like it.
That's very near where one of the places we vacation, and I've always had kind of a little fascination with it.
Yeah,
I would assume the Great Lakes Triangle is the Devil's Triangle.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they both have the same thing. Yeah. Topic
for another time. Okay, which is written about in a book by Jay Gorley. Not to be confused with Mark Gormley, look it up. That talks about the disappearances of hundreds of ships, boats, and air. Oh, definitely the Devil's Triangle. Yeah. Paulides says it is a great book. Stephen said he was going to go skiing. They found his skis and his poles on the beach of Lake Michigan, and his footprints on the ice leading up to the lake when they flew over it. The footprints appeared to stop.
Well, that's pretty weird in the first place, because you don't really go skiing on a lake.
I mean, you can if he's like cross-country skiing, as opposed to like downhill skiing. But
I don't know.
I don't know either. They found his backpack in the same general location on May 5th, 1979. 15 months later, Stephen walked up to his father's door and said he didn't remember much. What? He woke up in Pittsfield, 40 miles from his father's house, laying in a meadow wearing clothes that weren't his. He had a small satchel beside him with maps that weren't his.
What?
Where he woke up was 700 miles from Lake Michigan. Reporters asked him if he would talk to someone. He said he didn't need to because he didn't have any psychological problems. In 1983, Stephen got a master's in linguistics and a PhD in clinical psychology. Paulides got in touch with him. Stephen didn't respond to his emails or calls.
That's so weird.
I think this one actually might be easily explainable.
Okay. How?
Fugue state. I think this is a guy who, okay, if he was going skiing, maybe he was crossing the lake, he slipped in, maybe hit his head, something jarred him, he froze, he washed up on a beach, and maybe he just was living autonomously for a year, you know, and then all of a sudden, like, made his way to his dad's house unconsciously, subconsciously, who knows what he did in that year, and then just, like, went to sleep in a meadow as the other guy. It's like the Hulk, kind of. You know, like when the Hulk is in control, Banner doesn't remember what the Hulk did.
Yeah.
That's a fugue state.
Don't you think... I mean, granted, I don't know how far people can walk on their own, but 700 plus miles
over
away
12
from
years, over
Michigan?
15 months.
Right, but that's still a lot of time on foot.
No. 700 miles in a year on foot? I mean, people run cross country for like charity and shit. That's nothing.
And he just... in this state, could have interacted with anybody.
Anybody could have gotten rides from truckers.
Found those different clothes. Obviously, was able to sustain himself physically with food.
It reminds me of the story of the skier recently. Do you remember that?
Not sure.
The guy. It's weird that this guy was going to go skiing too. There was a guy. I don't remember exactly where. I want to say like northeastern United States. And he was going skiing with his family. There was like he went missing. And he was found like a week later in like California wearing the parka, and this isn't part of the missing 411. This has just actually happened recently. And he didn't have a phone or an ID or anything on him, but he was still wearing his like helmet and goggles and his parka and had his skis. And like it just kind of got brushed under the carpet. Like nobody really talked about it after a certain point, but it was very, very strange. Everybody was just like, yeah, he like hit his head and then he got in a truck and probably got hitchhiked to California in a couple days.
That's
it's like
creepy, though.
No, that's actually creepier than this. This at least had 15 months for him to kind of, or you know what? He just said, fuck it. Maybe if he was about to be college age, how old was he at the time? You know,
I kind of view the going to college for a PhD in clinical psychology as his way of being like, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not crazy. I'm going to go talk to other crazy people and prove that it wasn't me being nuts.
Or yeah, he's just exactly. He's like, I'm not crazy. See, I'm a psychologist.
Yeah, I feel like that's almost like a retaliation from people trying to challenge him, because unfortunately there's a negative stigma around people with mental health and wanting to talk to people, and it was much worse in the past. But in the 70s, you know, to speak to someone about what you went through and how you felt, people would have just instantly thought, you think I'm crazy.
Especially for a man too. I mean, like that is true. There's always been that, you know, be strong, don't let him see you, don't let him see you cry, all that shit. Like if he went through some shit, like, I mean,
that might have been the best way he could analyze kind of what happened too.
Or, you know, there are people who like to self-diagnose and figure themselves out. Like, I'm one of those people. Like, if something's not like self-diagnosed, like illnesses, but like psychologically, like if you're going through some shit, you know, I find it easier to like break it down and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And like if this guy went through a fugue state or a mental episode and it really was jarring him, maybe getting a psychology degree was the only thing he could do to be able to like repair what was going on so he could understand it better.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, this one doesn't sit on me as weird.
Okay.
As weird as the others.
With so much time in between, there really could have been anything that happened. And if he went through some kind of trauma or something, there's lots of ways that people could bury those kind of feelings and emotions.
Okay, so like we said, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of these cases, and we would be doing ourselves a disservice trying to go through all of them. And you know, the guy's got books, and there's a documentary out. If you're really interested in the rest of these cases, track that stuff down and look into it. I want to kind of go over really quickly before we move on some of the common threads that are in other cases.
Yes, I would love to do that.
Okay. So these are kind of the thing, like they said, like berry picking earlier was like one thing that's kind of like persistent throughout these cases. Another one of those is they're always found in unexpected locations. Now, this is back to that article on the Epoch Times. It says, Paulides gave some examples of people who were in one place one moment and then in another place far removed shortly thereafter. In the case of 2 toddlers, this puzzling characteristic is especially prevalent, since the toddlers were clearly not mobile enough to have covered the vast distance themselves. Maybe they got picked up by an eagle.
That's exactly what I thought. I thought, could a big bird have taken them?
Fuck yes, it could have. I mean,
Okay,
birds used to.
I wasn't crazy.
Birds do that shit. Like hawks and eagles,
Well, I know they take
will
like, little
snatch
dogs
kids
and stuff like that.
If you got like a Chihuahua or a terrier,
Chunky, juicy little toddler that looks scrumptious.
for
Maybe they
sure.
just swoop 'em
There you
up.
go. There's another for sure. I went so long.
Ah, it's okay.
Okay, so that was on July 13th, 1957. 2-year-old David Allen Scott went missing in the Twin Lakes area of the Sierra Nevada mountains. His father saw him, went into his camper momentarily. When he came out, the boy was just gone. The area didn't have much coverage, visibility was good, but searchers couldn't find the boy until 3 days later. After going up one side of a nearby mountain, down the other side of it, and up the side of another mountain, he could barely walk across a parking lot, Paulides said.
Oh my
Clearly,
gosh.
Scott did not make the journey himself. No, they were saying like this is a 2-year-old. He could barely
Right.
walk across a parking lot himself. How did he go up a mountain,
Let
down a
alone
mountain?
scaling mountains.
Yeah.
He's not a baby goat. He's a baby human.
So yeah, apparently another 2-year-old, Keith Parkins, went missing near his home in Ritter, Oregon on April 10th, 1952. He ran around the barn and wasn't seen again until he was found alive 19 hours later, some 15 miles away, face down in an iced over pond.
What?
So I'm assuming he passed. He was
Oh my
found-
gosh.
He was 2 years old, and he was found 19.
It says found alive.
Did it?
Found alive 19 hours later.
Found alive 19 hours later, face down. So he what?
Yeah.
That
I mean,
one's-
kids fall.
Yeah.
2-year-old could fall on its face pretty
I
easy.
guess that's true. But no, so that one, I mean, there's apparently a connection with a reoccurring theme in these stories of people covering vast distances that they would not normally or should not normally be able to cover in the amount of time, or because of the situation with their body, being a 2-year-old trying to climb a mountain. To put that into perspective, we just went and saw our godchildren tonight, and our oldest goddaughter is not even 2 years old yet.
And while she seems like she's moving a lot,
that kid's not climbing a mountain.
Overcoming very many obstacles, yeah.
There's a gate to their kitchen. She can't get over the gate. She's not climbing a mountain and then going down the other side and then climbing up another one. Okay, so missing over vast distances was one thing. Another thing is the connection with water. The missing persons are often found beside bodies of water, and these are far from clear-cut cases of drowning, Paulides said. Many of these cases Paulides has examined took place around the Great Lakes, but also around bodies of water in urban and other areas. Jelani Brinson, a 24-year-old college soccer star, was found in a golf course pond in Anoka, Minnesota. He went missing from a friend's home on April 17, 2009 at 10:30 p.m. Investigators found his hat in one backyard nearby, his shoes in another.
Oh, that's weird.
Well, that just sounds like somebody killed the poor kid and like threw his shit.
Well, they didn't really hide his stuff very well.
Well, they just threw it over the fences or something. It had been raining for days, and the golf course was muddy, yet Brinson's socks were clean. It seems he did not walk there, but was placed in the pond by someone. He didn't drown, Paulides said. The cause of death remains undetermined. Furthermore, his is one death among many in a cluster Paulides identified in the area.
Ooh.
Paulides has written multiple books on the investigations, which, okay, we know this.
So that one could have possibly even been, like, unfortunately, a serial killer.
Similar cases have appeared in other places around the world, although Paulides has not investigated all of those in depth. Recently, the Manchester Canal deaths have gotten some attention. UK newspapers have speculated that dozens of bodies, mostly men, found in a canal in Manchester over the past several years may be the work of a serial killer dubbed the Pusher.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, if it happened with multiple people and the victims in this case all have very similar characteristics of all being male in a certain age range, all going out drinking before going missing, but then their articles of clothing
that's
and
only
the wear on the body doesn't add up to the amount of time missing. Like,
yeah,
it would make sense if that was a way that they were trying to, do their process as a serial killer,
For
unfortunately.
Sure. There's another for sure. Who knows? It is a mystery.
It is.
So, yeah, I mean, there are other small details. A lot of times after the person has gone missing, not before, but after, inclement weather that is uncharacteristic for the season will appear. If their clothes are found, they're usually neatly folded with the shoes on top.
What?
Yeah, like with their shoes.
How many cases are you talking? Like a lot?
A few. I don't know the exact numbers. I have not read the books. These are just a list that I found.
Do you know if, well, I guess it wouldn't be the case with these ones because their shoes were found in one area and something about their clothes were found in another.
Right. Yeah. These are just some of the examples that were of the major connections.
Oh.
But yeah, so I mean that's a taste, a healthy serving of Missing 411. Like I said, you can find actual interviews with Paulides, which are really interesting on AM Coast to Coast. He did a couple of those. They just made a feature-length documentary, and just Front Street, we are not like affiliated with, sponsored by, or even know any of the people who made that movie or anything like that. This isn't promotion.
Making one at one point about it before it came out. Somehow.
Like, yeah, we were both very interested in this subject when it kind of first hit the zeitgeist a few years ago, and considered being like, we should make a documentary about this, and then found out they were making a documentary about it. But yeah, you can find more information on it all over the internet, literally all over it. There's a subreddit dedicated to it, and there are just tons of YouTube videos, articles, theorizing and speculating. But the only real opinion I'm interested in right now is yours.
My opinion is that I still don't know. I can't even give this the I want to believe rating because I don't know what I'm believing in. These are actually like,
and I think that's the point,
credible missing people cases, but they're all so vastly different and weird that it makes me really want to research further, like read some of these books and actually see the different things that he's found connections to. There
was a time when I was digesting this stuff pretty ravenously and being like, oh my gosh, this is the most, and then you start to, like I said, you see the Bigfoot stuff, and you see the fact that maybe these are being cherry picked a little bit, and the fact that he's selling books and making money off of this, and my belief in the craziness of it all kind of died down, but the strangeness did not. There are some seriously weird cases inside this that if you have not already been exposed to them, go look up the rest of them because they're really, really interesting. And
for me, the money-making aspect of it really doesn't change my thought on it, because I think with all of the work he's put in, it's not a bad idea to be able to be, compensated in one way or another for the research he's done.
No, and I don't disagree. I think that everybody has a right to make their money. That's, part of the game, but David Paulides is not the only window into crazy missing persons cases.
Well, let's get further in.
Okay.
Open that window.
So, open that window. Let's open the window. Let's climb inside. There was a story that I came across a while back, and it was, I believe, on Reddit. It was on the Unresolved Mysteries subreddit, and it just, something about it, just caught my attention. I don't know if it's just the sensationalism. I don't know if it is the proximity to government facilities, which I find really interesting, things that happen out in the desert, but it's a missing man by the name of Kenny Veach.
Have you heard of this? The name sounds familiar, but I don't remember the story.
Okay, so from that Reddit post by Legion Profligate is the user, from about a year ago. He has a really nice summation of this story, and I'm going to paraphrase from him. Kenny Veach, as described by his girlfriend, was a hiker who roamed the deserts of Nevada, trips that his girlfriend, Sharon Pilgrim, would attend with him. However, in November of 2014, this would soon change for the worst. Kenny Veach made a YouTube comment discussing a strange M-shaped cave near the Sheep Mountains, north of Las Vegas, which garnered people's attention. Now, I've gone and found the YouTube comment. I have it right here in front of me.
Oh, okay.
He was under the username Snakebite McGee at the time. And it says, "This ain't nothing. I'm a long-distance hiker. One time during one of my mini hikes out by Nellis Air Force Base, I found a hidden cave. The entrance to the cave was shaped like a perfect capital M. I always enter every cave I find, but as I began to enter this particular cave, my entire body began to vibrate. The closer I got to the cave entrance, the worse the vibrating became. Suddenly, I became very scared and hightailed it out of there. That was one of the strangest things that has ever happened to me." Now, that comment received a lot of attention, 143 replies on YouTube alone.
Oh, that's so creepy.
He described the cave that was near the Nellis Air Force Base, a place that is frequently thought of as a conspiracy boiling pot for many who theorize about that place. So what happened to Kenny Veach? He did make a YouTube video, and you can find that YouTube video, where he talked about he's going to go back out and find the cave. I have another comment here by him, replying to somebody else. He says, "No, I solo hike across mountaintops that most people wouldn't dare go. I have been in more caves than I can count. I play with rattlesnakes for fun, but this one particular cave was beyond anything I had ever encountered. Someday I will go back and I will bring a weapon with me. All I had at the time was a knife and a wrist rocket." which is a slingshot for those who don't know.
That's so creepy.
Long story short, he mounts up, he takes his gun, his cell phone, his knife, maybe his wrist rocket, and he goes back out in search of this cave. He tells his girlfriend he's going, he leaves, and he goes to find it. He's never seen again. All right, so after he goes missing, a search party is put together to go and find him. All they find is his cell phone.
Okay.
He told his family he was going to hike in the mountains and planned to return 2 days later. He did not return. We found his cell phone very close to it. This is from... let's see, Commander Dave Cummings of the Search and Rescue, Red Rock Search and Rescue. We found his cell phone very close to a vertical old mine shaft, and we can't find another trail. It doesn't mean that he's down the mine shaft, but we have tracked him as far as we can. We are having our other crews come in from other search areas.
Oh, man. Did they search the mine shaft?
It doesn't seem like they actually went down into the mine shaft, from what I can tell.
Because it would make sense to me if I fell down a mine shaft and I didn't have much on me that I'd be trying to throw something up out the hole if I couldn't get back out to let people know, like, hey, I'm down here.
I would assume that they checked it. I don't know if they actually went. I mean, if that's literally the last place they saw anything.
Well, plus if you fell down there, you, depending on how long it was before they found the phone, I'm not just going to stick around looking at a hole in the sky. I'm going to keep exploring where I am to find another way out, too. Or
other possibility is he was, taking a break there, checking his phone. He fell in, dropped his phone, and broke his neck, and he died down there. I guess that's true. I don't know. Now here's an extra little a caveat to the story. His girlfriend was questioned about a bunch of stuff, about the whole relationship, about him as a person, and he had told her at one point in time that he had depression, that he was a little bit suicidal, and that if he ever did kill himself, nobody would ever find him. So that's kind of where my head goes, and I want to believe that he went out and found this crazy M-shaped cave near an Nellis Air Force base and stumbled on some underground crazy shit and was never heard from again. But
I would also say, like, if he was able to find that cave, if it emitted that type of energy, whether it was created by something at the Air Force base or a naturally occurring energy, if he already had suicidal tendencies, I would worry that maybe it affected him more than it would other people, and maybe that would have him get to a point that his depression was a little peaked too, so that could also be part of it.
Right. It sounds like to me this guy made a comment on okay, if we're going to take the most logical, like, strict approach, like skeptical approach to it, possibly made a comment on YouTube that he maybe didn't mean, maybe just talking shit, had to back it up, and like made these videos, and like that just was the end of the road. He was already depressed, he was already not feeling great, he was already suicidal, and then he's like, okay, and now I've dug myself into this hole. He even makes a video going out searching for the cave. Obviously maybe it doesn't exist, he doesn't find it, and then so he goes out one last time and he's like, well, this is it, I'm done. Which
sadly does make sense.
But it's still very.
I understand that too.
It definitely blipped on my radar because Nellis Air Force Base, definitely, like they said, a boiling pot for some other conspiracy theories out in Vegas.
And I feel like there's been a lot of stories of like different caves and mine shafts and just areas underground in the desert and in that area that have just weird, creepy energy to them, and different
who knows what's
lore from the people who've lived there ages. And
who knows what's out there. I mean, they denied the existence of Area 51 for years. Like, straight up denied that it even existed, and then people were able to finally see it, and they're like, no, it's right there. And they're like, yeah, it is. Just like they denied the existence of UFOs for years, and then they were like, well, yeah, here they are.
Yeah, that's real too.
What else is, what's next? I'm not saying it's outside of the realm of possibility that this guy, found something he wasn't supposed to and got iced for it, or there was something inside that cave that took care of him, but just another one I wanted to share with you.
Yeah, thank you for doing so, because it's super creepy.
Okay. I'm going to rate that one of I want to believe, because maybe there's some hope in there that he's not alive. If you're suffering from suicidal thoughts or depression or anything like that, there are places out there that want to help you. There's hotlines you can call, there's forums you can visit. Don't go out in the desert and do yourself in if that's what this guy did. That's not the answer to any. That's a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right, last one of these. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. In December 1900, a boat called Hesperus set sail from the island of Eileen Moor. one of 7 islets known as the Seven Hunters of the Flannan Isles off the coast of northwestern Scotland. Captain James Harvey was tasked with delivering a relief lighthouse keeper as part of his regular rotation. The journey was delayed for a few days due to bad weather. When Harvey and his crew finally arrived, it was clear that something was awry. None of the normal preparations at the lighthouse landing dock had been made. The flagstaff was bare, and none of the keepers came to greet the Hesperus. The keepers, as it turned out, weren't even on the island at all. All 3 of them had vanished. Eileen Moor had its peculiarities. The island's only permanent residents were sheep, and the herders referred to it as the other country, believing it to be a place touched by something paranormal. Okay. Eileen Moor had long elicited a sort of fearful reverence in its visitors. The main draw to the remote location was a chapel built in the 7th century by St. Flannan. Even those who never prayed were moved to worship while on Eileen Moor. Superstitions and rituals like circling the church's ruins on your knees were adopted by those passing through, and many considered Eileen Moor to have an indefinable aura that could not be ignored.
That's pretty cool in itself.
Mm-hmm. What the Hesperus's crew did find at the lighthouse was a set of perplexing clues. The replacement keeper, Joseph Moore, was the first to investigate and reported an all-encompassing sense of dread as he ascended the cliff toward the newly constructed lighthouse. Inside, the kitchen table contained plates of meat, potatoes, and pickles. The clock was stopped, and there was an overturned chair nearby. The lamp was ready for lighting, and 2 of the 3 oilskin coats belonging to Thomas Marshall and James Ducat and Donald MacArthur were gone. The gate and the door were firmly shut. These clues only led to more questions. Why would one of the keepers have gone out without his coat? And for that matter, why would all 3 of them have left together at all when the rules strictly forbade it? Someone needed to man the post at all times, so something unusual must have drawn them out there. When Moore returned with his report, Harvey had the island searched. The hunt came up empty. The captain sent a telegram to the mainland. A dreadful accident has happened at Flannan's. The 3 keepers have disappeared from the island. On our arrival there this afternoon, no sign of life was to be seen on the island. Fired a rocket, but no response was made. Managed to land Moore, who went up to the station but found no keepers there. The clocks were stopped, and other signs indicated that an accident must have happened about a week ago. Poor fellows, they must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned trying to secure a crane or something like that. Night coming on, we could not wait to make something as to their fate. I have left Moore, MacDonald, Boymaster, and 2 seamen on the island to keep the light burning until you make other arrangements. Will not return to Oban until I hear from you. I have repeated this wire to Muirhead in case you are not at home. I will remain at the telegraph office tonight until it closes if you wish to wire me.
Okay.
Further investigations led nowhere, though the lighthouse logbook did provide a new set of confounding details. On December 12th, an entry from Marshall described severe winds, the likes of which I have never seen before in my 20 years. He wrote that Ducat had been quiet and MacArthur had been crying, which would have been odd behavior for a man with a reputation as a tough and experienced seafarer. The next day, Marshall reported the storm details and wrote that all 3 of them had been praying. Another odd bit of behavior for well-seasoned keepers in a brand new, supposedly safe lighthouse. Yeah. Strangest of all, there were no reports of storms in the area on the day of December 12th, 13th, or 14th. All should have been calm up until December 17th. The last report in the book was from December 15th that read, "Storm has ended, sea calm, God is over all."
That's so weird.
So let's break that last bit down. There were no storms in the area on the 12th, 13th, or 14th. All should have been calm up until December 17th. The last report in the book is from December 15th, and it read, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all." So
that kind of takes away their first theory of
maybe they got blown over. Yeah, the people from the mainland, and then the reports say there was no inclement weather. There was inclement weather that prevented them from getting to the lighthouse sooner from the other side. That's the Hesperus, the ship that came in. But in the area of the Flannan Lighthouse itself, it seemed like everything should have been good, easy peasy up until the 17th. But apparently something happened in those days where there was a terrible storm that should not have existed, that it resulted in all the clocks stopping, chairs being turned over, grown men crying and praying, and them disappearing without their coats.
Well, and I, too, am kind of interested in the fact that there's a church on the island that also has, like, a history of people doing interesting prayers there and things. Like, maybe there's just some kind of energy on the island itself that pulls those kind of feelings up for people.
Well, certainly, and that brings me to my theory.
Which is?
I know what you're thinking. He's going to say aliens. Aliens came in, took them, came with the storm, or one of them went crazy and killed the other 2 and then killed themselves, and they threw their bodies all over the edge of the cliffs to undo the horrors that they've done. I'm going to just go right out I'm going to go all the way off the deep end and say this is an eldritch horror.
I love that.
This is some fucking Lovecraftian shit. If I have ever seen Lovecraftian shit in real life, it is this.
Well, that's what it kind of reminds me of. Yeah, like that's what I was thinking with like the prayer and stuff.
Yeah. Like walking around churches on your knees, grown men crying and cowering in fear and praying when they never did so before, all the clocks stopping, storms out of nowhere, and then they just disappear. Yeah. Like, this is some Lovecraft shit. And this is the reason I saved this story to the end, is there still is no real explanation for this. They could have been, I mean, the most probable logical explanation is that a freak storm occurred that nobody saw somehow, and they all blew off the island together. But that seems really out there to me, so this story is a hard one to believe for me.
Yeah. I think equally out there, though, would be the idea of the murder-suicide idea, too, because there'd at least be some kind of crime scene, some kind of evidence of something.
I mean, not necessarily. Not if he took them out to the edges of the cliffs.
Unless he just, like, dove across them and just jumped off the cliff.
Took all three of them off together with him.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there needs to be a movie about this. There needs to be a totally fictionalized story of, like, a 1900 Lovecraftian lighthouse horror story where what happened in those days, those few days that between, you know, them going there and then the ship arriving, what happened in those days that nobody knows could have been the most terrifying thing that's ever happened on Earth. I don't know. It really, that one just feels eldritch through and through to me.
Yeah. And honestly, if you did it from a movie angle, throw some goats in with those sheep, you got some real creepy atmosphere going.
Oh, like the Black Phillip?
Yeah. Love it.
From The Witch. Yeah. That's that one, though. And that is my hands down favorite of the bunch.
I have heard this story before. I gotta agree. I love it. It's just such an odd scenario of just, hey, we're checking on this lighthouse, and for some reason everyone's gone. When it's a lighthouse, you're on, you know, rocky terrain that someone could easily hit in a boat. You don't just abandon ship on your lighthouse.
No, these guys didn't just straight up leave. Something happened.
Yeah.
Whether it was a freak natural disaster or like an act of God kind of thing with like a squall or something that nobody saw except them, maybe. But I mean, he's talking about a storm the likes of which he hasn't seen in 20 years of being a lighthouse keeper.
Yeah.
You don't do that job in Scotland in the rough waters and not, I don't know, something. This one screams something a little bit out there to me. This is one of those ones that has genuine mystery written all over it for me.
I totally agree. What that could be, I do not know, but it's definitely probably the creepiest story out of all of them.
For sure. And actually, you know, and to bring us all the way back around full circle, I specifically did not read a few of the creepiest stories from Missing 411 because I feel like they're best served told by Paulides himself. I just wanted to get into the topic and talk about it. So if you can, track down the episodes of AM Coast to Coast, the first couple that he did, and just kick back and listen to it. Take it for what you will. Like, you know, truth or fiction, somewhere in between. The cases themselves are real and they're interesting. And if you're just looking for that creepy vibe, hunt it down, find it, listen to it when you've got some spare time.
I think I'm gonna do that.
So yeah, that was our mainline topic for the week. It was the mysterious missing persons cases that kind of have a paranormal or unexplained creepy vibe to them. I thought it'd be kind of cool if from this point forward we kind of tell people what next week's main topic is going to be before we kind of wrap things up.
Sure, let's do it.
Next week's episode is going to be Beyond the Veil. We're going to talk about cases of people who were transported or saw into alternate dimensions or parallel realities, that kind of a thing. We have 2 major cases for that one. We're kind of researching a third right now to see if it's legit. And of course, we'll have our normal stuff at the end. But just thought we'd let you know that so you can have that to look forward to if that's something.
Little teaser.
Yeah,
I love it. Are you ready for me to go into some creepy things kids have said?
I think I'm ready.
All right. So this one comes to us again from Reddit. I'm in the creepy kids thread this time. Username Nixie Sky.
Nixie Sky. What do you got?
My mother told me that when I was younger, from the time I was a newborn till about 4 or 5, I would wake up from a slumber every time that we were in the car driving past the cemetery. Apparently, once I was able to talk, I used to make her turn up the music really loud when we would pass because I said the voices were too loud and I couldn't listen to so many at once.
Holy shit.
Yeah. What would you do if that was your kid?
Like, that's exactly what I'm thinking about, is like, we're hitting that age where we're going to have kids soon. And I'm like, if my kid said that to me, I'd just stop the car and say, get out.
No, you wouldn't not.
You're done here.
You are a liar.
Of course I'm lying. Of course I'm lying. But no, that's terrifying.
It is.
No, thank you.
And the fact that they did that since infancy, when you cannot see out of the car.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
you're not looking and being like, oh, you have context clues. Like, oh, cemeteries are spooky because I watched Casper as a kid, and I know that cemeteries are spooky, so that, you know, it's like inherently creepy. No.
They just know.
They just know.
So here's another one I got.
Fuck that.
This one is from username Cornpwned.
Okay.
Creepy things my 3-year-old has said. Someday I will have a farm, and I will have animals like a rat and some mices. I will have a little pecker chicken with a little pecker thing, and he will pecker my head and make a hole, and it's gonna tickle.
Well, that's just a kid being a kid.
There's a few.
That's just funny.
There's a few from this person. We were visiting a friend's new baby, and my son's first words were, "When is this baby gonna die?"
Oh shit.
So the kid's kind of morbid.
Yeah, that's one of the kids psychopath. No, he's just curious.
I was watching my son play with his trucks on the floor, and I smiled and I said, "I love you," and he responded, "I love you too. I actually don't feel like killing you right now."
How old was that kid?
No year. Oh, 3-year-old. Yeah,
3.
Things my 3-year-old has said.
I don't feel like killing you right now. Once again, these just feel like little brats.
And
that first one, though.
The last one from this person says, when my son was much younger, he would talk about the woman who lives in our walls and misses her family. This was my favorite one. We would find him upstairs on a pile of blankets laying there, and he'd say he was laying down with a lonely woman.
Oh, well, that's both sad and creepy.
Yeah.
Like, what a sweet kid. Get him take him to Toys R Us and get him an action figure, because that's a good kid. But also,
who is this lonely woman? Creepy.
Woman. Yeah, like, you need to do some research on your house and like go back and figure out who she was. Help her find some peace. Oh man. I think we should open it up too. If you have any that you've found online, or you have anything that kids have said to you, send it to us and maybe we can put it in this.
I already know some people who I know from YouTube who have creepy stories, so I might go into some of those.
Hit them up and see if you've got anything that kids have ever said to you that's super creepy. Just, yeah, tweet at us, hit us on Instagram, find us on social media, or leave it in a comment below.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, are you ready to round the week out?
I think I am ready.
Okay. Let's get into this week's /X-Files.
Okay, I can't look again, right?
Right, don't look. Anyone know anything to help me get started with necromancy? Anywhere to start? And the top comment just says, "Stop playing Diablo." Okay, I think that's it for Midnight Files for this week. You have anything you want to say before we head out?
Enjoy your rest of your day.
Thank you so much for listening. It's awesome that you guys gave us as much support as you did this time around. Please share this around if you like it and you know people who like paranormal stuff and funny stuff and just want to be entertained.
Yeah, and thanks for being awesome so far. You guys are the bomb.
I am Alex.
And I'm Kat. Had a strange week.
This week's episode of Midnight Files featured the songs Tumult by Kai Engel, See by Betrayal, Hotline.gov by Anonymous420, and Sleight of Hand by Ryan Little.